Bon dia, buenos dias, good morning. Welcome to the second day of the OPN Forum. We are very happy that yesterday was a very productive day, very inspiring. And today's session is the most amazing, inspiring, and important session of the whole forum, because you are here. And why is this important? This year, the OPN Forum is focusing on reducing inequalities through sustainable consumption, reducing inequalities for a just transition. And this is a topic that is very important. Often we put the emphasis on business, in the resource extraction, and we as citizens say, no, me, I don't cut a tree, I don't kill an animal, I'm innocent, right? But it's through consumption that we are driving the use of resources and that we are driving this extraction of resources that is everything but sustainable. So what we are going to discuss today is sustainable lifestyles approaches for a fair and sustainable space for us. And this is very important to really address inequalities, because we know today that Merlin will say better, but I just read from a report that 1% of the population owns 80% of the richness. So I think that just shows the big inequalities that we have. We have a fantastic panel. So you will have in the agenda, we will have first welcome remarks. I'm very happy to have the Excellency Maisa Eloisa Rojas Cardi, Minister of Environment from Chile. And after that, we will have two sessions. One is where we want to look at the scientific basis and evidence for sustainable livelihood and sustainable lifestyles. That will be one. And the second one, we will be looking at more action-oriented things. How can we strengthen the institutional initiatives, the institutional framework to allow that sustainability? So without further ado, and sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Adriana Zacarias. I'm the Deputy Head of the One Planet Network. I work in UNEP for many, many years. Don't need to say how, but more than 2 decades. I'm very passionate about sustainable lifestyles. It's one of my favorite topics. So I'm very happy really to have with us Excellency Maisa Rojas Carradi from the Ministry of Environment. I want to highlight that she was the coordinator of the Scientific Advisory Council on Climate Change and member of the COP25 Presidential Advisory Council, and she was in the Chilean delegation of COP25 and COP26. So we are very honored that you are here with us, and please, you have the floor for the welcoming remarks.
Tengo que leer, entonces me siento. Good morning, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor and privilege to be here to address you at the sustainable lifestyle approaches for a fair and sustainable consumption space for all. But before I start, just a few words and sentiments to Brazil. We're hosting us here in the beautiful city of Rio, the city that gave birth to the 3 UN convention that we have to address environmental challenges and that today is suffering important forest fires. So my deepest thoughts as well to the people of Brazil in this complicated moments that remind us all that climate change is here. It's a reality that we have to face with big urgency. In Chile as well, we have witnessed firsthand the impacts of climate change and environmental degradation, from the melting of glaciers in the Andes to the droughts that have affected an important part of our country for over a decade, and very, very fierce forest fires as well in our summer. So we definitely understand that the situation is very complicated, and the consequences of our current trajectory are stark. But alongside these challenges, there is also hope. A hope rooted on the potential for transformative change, where sustainable lifestyles we see as an important, crucial element. Sustainable lifestyle is not just about reducing consumption or minimizing waste. They are about rethinking how we live our lives, how we define well-being, and how we create a future that is equitable, inclusive, and just for all. Remember that many of our countries are still facing important challenges of development. Poverty is something that is still too close in our reality, and the way that lifestyles play in that development challenge is something that we have to think about carefully. So we have to ensure that the benefits of sustainability are accessible to everyone and not just to a privileged minority. The urgency of our task cannot be overstated. We must move beyond the traditional focus of efficiency and circularity. We have to embrace sufficiency. This means not only making our system more efficient, but also fundamentally questioning the levels of consumption that has driven us to the brink of ecological collapse. Today's session is a crucial opportunity to deepen our understanding on how sustainable lifestyles can contribute to solving the environmental crisis we face, linking climate change, loss of biodiversity or protection of biodiversity, and pollution control with social equity. We are facing a triple environmental crisis. And I think it is very important to always put the three of them together so that we make sure that we understand that they are interlinked, that they are, I like to say, a symptom of a relationships crisis at the end of the day. A bad relationship with nature and a bad relationship among ourselves, because it is part of a global inequality that we see among countries, but also within countries. I don't like to endorse the solution of this crisis just to a personal level. I think it is dangerous that our population feel that the burden is all on their shoulders, that it is their decisions that have to solve everything. But on the other hand, it is clear that without a consciousness, awareness of our own engagement and agency, people cannot also ask us, policymakers, to make those changes. In Chile, we have a very dear botanist and ecologist that died a few years ago, and she used to say that you don't care what you don't care for what you don't love, and you can love something that you don't know. And hence the importance of not just understanding intellectually, but knowing, having the experience of that caring. That caring, that awareness is something that we get also by understanding that it is our choices in our lifestyle that can make such difference. And with that, forcing all the rest of society, and particularly, I'm speaking now as a minister, as a policymaker, as someone who has to take decisions and implement policies, to do so. So, as we begin this session, I encourage us all to think boldly and creatively about the solutions we need. Let us challenge ourselves to move beyond the status quo and to envision a future where our lifestyles are in harmony with nature. that regardless of our circumstances, everyone has access to a fair and sustainable consumption space. Thank you for your commitment to this cause, and I'm looking forward to hearing your discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister, and thank you so much for really emphasizing the issue of sufficiency. That is a theme that we are promoting, for highlighting the interlinkages with climate, biodiversity, pollution, and also social equality. That's very important. And thanks also for reminding that it's not only inequality between countries, but that inequality is also within our own. So we really appreciate your welcome remarks. And now, let's move to my other panelist, if you want. Babel, yeah. Since we have a PowerPoint presentation, I will invite now my dear colleague, Merlin van Voor. She is the head of the International Resources Panel. If you don't know about this fantastic panel, she will let you know. But what is very important is that Merlin's going to provide now the scientific basis and evidence for the need for sustainable lifestyles. And the International Resource Panel also did a think piece paper from the OPN Forum that is really talking about reducing inequalities through sustainable consumption and production. So Merlin, the floor is yours.
If I can figure out how to switch on the mic, is it on? Yes. Good morning, everybody. And I think the minister from Chile, and I made a note of the expression that you gave, and you said, this colleague of yours, a well-known botanist who passed away, and their legacy was, you don't care for what you don't love. And you went on and described that. And you don't love what you don't know. And I think that that's such a powerful sentiment, because over the past 2 days, Minister and colleagues here, we've spoken a lot about how we all care, and that's why we are here. And we've also spoken about what we think should change, and that's why we are here. And this morning when I was sitting in the forum on the bioeconomy, and I was listening to the colleague from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and she spoke about how we need to, in my words, change our fundamental relationship with the food system, the way we produce food, and what that means for landscapes. She spoke about the Amazon, etc. So she brought it home. And now my job is going to be a little bit more boring, because our job as the International Resources Panel is that we also try to get the data to convince policymakers why they should put in place certain regulations. They're not just going to do it because they love. They want to do it because they want to be able, as we say, make the case. So, as Adriana said, I'm from the International Resources Panel. I'm not going to talk directly to the slides, but one of the things that the International Resources Panel has done over the years, and more recently at the UN Environment Assembly, we produced what we call the Global Resources Outlook. We asked 2 questions. We said, the world has set climate targets for 2030. That's 6 years. That's tomorrow. In order to achieve those climate targets, how are they going to do it? And different countries, because they have different jurisdictions, have national policies to help them meet those targets. What our scientists said was, let's take a meta approach, a bigger picture approach, and try to understand what that means at a very fundamental level, which is the way we extract our natural resources, fossil fuels, biomass, sand, gravel, clay, lithium, cobalt, fisheries, I can go on and on. That's the foundation of the imbalance of where we are today. And that's what drives, not just, as you called it, the planetary crisis, triple planetary crisis, climate, biodiversity, and pollution. But it also drives a lot of the inequalities, which is what I've been asked to talk to today. And whoever is in charge of the slides, you can let the slides roll, and it's just a way that it provides a backdrop, and for people who want to follow up and go to the actual data in the report, please do so. So as I said, when we started this report, we said we need to ask the fundamentals, and the fundamentals is we need to get to the heart of the matter, the real heart of the matter. And the heart of the matter, which is what the slide is trying to tell us, is that right now we are exceeding almost all aspects of the way we extract our natural resources. And without being alarmist, but one of the scientists of this report, who's the co-chairs, and his name is Janusz Poczotnik, and he gave a speech in UNEA, and he said, if there's only two things you have to remember about this report, even if you are not a scientist, is he says that the science tells us that the current model of consumption and production, two words, he said it is wasteful and it's unjust. And that we can actually measure that it's wasteful, and we can actually measure that it's unjust. So it's not rhetoric, it's not an opinion. We all have opinions, but we asked our scientists to say, can you actually give us evidence of how wasteful and unsustainable the current model is? And can you give us evidence of what it means when you say the current model of consumption and production is unjust? And this is what they said. They said that the rate at which we extract, meaning the rate at which we take the resources from the earth and then process them to feed us, to give us mobility, energy, and all the things that are important to all of us. They said that the rate at which that is happening, that the resource use, as we call it in the International Resources Panel, has spiked. And right now, that trend is upward. And the headline of our report was, Bend the Trend. Now, I'm not catchy, and I'm looking to the young people, and I overheard them yesterday that they want to go to the beach soon. So I'm going to be going. Yes, you're laughing. I was sitting there listening to you. But the important thing is that there is this issue of generational issues. It continues an upward trend. And so we try to find a way to get the imagination of people to say, bend the trend. And that's going to be, to put it calmly, a challenge that's going to be up to all of you sitting in this row in front, and all of us to help you lead the way. But back to, what does this spike in resource use actually mean scientifically? As I said, they said it puts our climate goals at risk. The scientists also said that it puts economic prosperity at risk. And this is where the issue of inequality and equity and justice comes from. Because if economic prosperity is at risk for everybody, then we have failed everybody. So two things. It puts our climate goals, just as an example, at risk, and it puts economic prosperity for everybody at risk. And they've actually modeled that. And I'm not going to go into the science, so what most scientists do is they model things, meaning they make assumptions. So they say, if this, then what? And they said, can you have a world that focuses on well-being and at the same time focuses on economic growth and development? Can you decouple those two things, and still have well-being? And meaning look after everybody. And in order to model that, they said yes. But the answer to the yes is there's going to be a lot of trade-offs. And the colleague from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation this morning, when she spoke about food systems, she was saying we need to think differently about the production of food, meaning the industrial agricultural processes. I like all sorts of food, but I've become more and more aware of where the source of my food that I like comes from and what that means for landscapes, for small farmers, and ultimately, as I say, it links back to our meta goal, which is the triple planetary crisis. Then they asked the question, they said, where's the source of inequality? Because we talk about inequality. And when I was in the room with scientists, there was a lot of debate that inequality is not just about inequality between so-called North and so-called South. And they also said inequality is not just about inequality between rural and urban. And they said in every single society, there's inequality, and I'm assuming those of you like me, we have access to mobility. I live in a small town in Europe called Paris, so I can commute. I don't need to drive a car. But does that mean that my consumption is less, and I said this yesterday, than the consumption of somebody, and I mentioned the example of Dakar, where the right to mobility is not taken for granted as it would be for those of us who live in cities that are configured around providing services to meet human needs. And so we asked the scientists, we said, so where's the source of this inequality coming from? And how do you address it? So that means taking it from what we call the meta level. We talk about the inequality between global North and global South. But there's also inequality within our cities, urban, rural, or what people call rich versus poor. And the one figure that they found is that if you take the wealthy, no matter where they are located, they use 6 times more materials than the poor. 6 times more. So that's a driver of inequality. and how to address that imbalance. I know, Adriana, you said we're getting to the solutions. So that's a question. And they did come up with policy options for our political principles, as we call them. Then, to end, because you have to end on a good note. As Yanis said, it's not just that it's wasteful, and it's not just that it's unjust. It's that we actually know what to do. And I think if I listened to you correctly, the Minister of Chile, you were talking about individual responsibility, collective responsibility, and the role of governments who can make choices. And it's a choice. And I think with the science, Adriana, that we've tried, and somebody said it yesterday, if you don't address the fundamentals of equality and equity and justice, and I've sat in rooms where people argued about, oh, what does that mean? And that, I think, is important to have that kind of discourse. But it cannot only be a conversation if it doesn't lead to an outcome, which is, remember I said this report was about well-being and economic prosperity. And so to conclude, I don't think that we should be shackled by what's not being done, or somebody's not doing enough. And Aurelia, you yesterday, Ulia, you really inspired me with your example of how you've built this ground up movement of ambassadors of young people. And so I think there's obviously a lot of things that we can do. And as the UN, we do focus on the bigger picture, which is what happens at negotiations, what happens at the level of governments and regulation and the policy instruments that they can do. But I also think it is important, which is why the One Planet Network and the work that you're doing, Adriana and colleagues, is so important when it comes to, as you said, your passion, which is about changing the way we think about how we live and how we share our space with others. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Merlin, for this very inspiring, insightful, and also worrying presentation. I really like what you say, and I keep the two words that Janis say. Our current model of consumption and production is wasteful and unjust. So I think that's a key message for us to address. And thank you also for saying that this is also putting the economic model of security at risk. So it's not only the environment, it's the economy, it's the society. So now let me invite also our colleague, Luca Kosheme. I'm very happy, and I forgot to say, Hot or Cool Institute is a close partner of UNEP and co-organizer of this event. The Institute is the author of this report you might have heard on sustainable lifestyles within 1.5 degrees, and they are now looking at the concept of how can we really make sure we have a fair space for consumption for all. So, Luca, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Let's go to my slides. Okay. Is this on?
This one. Yeah. Take this one.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, to see all your beautiful faces. Thank you so much, Marilyn, for talking so clearly about what are the impacts and what are the problems with our consumption and our lifestyle. So I don't have to do so again. I can build on what you said. And I would like to talk indeed a bit more about what I believe are the two main reasons as to why we are not seeing enough progress in reducing carbon emission, reducing nature loss, and addressing all of these challenges. And these two reasons are, the first is that we have overlooked what are the causes of these environmental problems. We have mostly focused on understanding the symptoms, while the causes are, of course, how we consume and how much we consume. In fact, this is now being addressed, and this session is one example of that. For example, the IPCC recently estimated that we can achieve through lifestyle change between 40 and 70% of carbon emission reduction, which is a huge amount of reductions. And the second reason why we are not succeeding in addressing these polycrises is because we are not integrating an understanding of how inequalities are actually driving this environmental crisis. And also Marilyn talked to that. In fact, Marilyn also showed several statistics, but we can say that the richest 10% is responsible for 50% of global emissions. And we are seeing similar trends also when it comes to nature loss. About 50% of biodiversity loss occurs in the global south and is driven by consumption in the global north. So this is really also affected by inequality. So we introduced in our latest report the idea of a fair consumption space, which is a space within environmentally sustainable levels, so which are, for example, defined by a consumption that produces emissions, carbon emissions, which are below what is allocated by equally allocating the 1.5 degree carbon budget of the Paris Agreement. So that define really an equal share of resources and consumption that we have. You can think of it as a cake. If everyone that takes a bigger piece of cake, then is precluding others from eating the cake. So we need really collective action, and we need to understand that, and we need really to understand what it means to be on one planet with one carbon budget, with one atmosphere, with one pool of biodiversity. So as I said, this kind of determines the environmental ceiling of this fair consumption space, and the floor is a social floor. It's a floor which addresses underconsumption. It's a floor where, above which everyone is meeting their basic needs. This may be a little bit more difficult to measure, but it can also be measured. And within this space, that's where we have different lifestyle options that individuals and households can have. But this, and this we know from scientific evidence, these have to address some of the really key hotspots of climate change, but also biodiversity loss, which is meat consumption, use of private cars, flying, and others that you maybe know of. So we cannot really address the impacts of lifestyles without bravely going to touch on these consumption areas. I want to dig deeper just a little bit more on inequalities, because I think this may complement also what Marilyn was saying. Why we need to reduce inequalities? I think that the impact of inequality on society is still not really broadly understood. And this impact has to do with psychosocial mechanisms that affect feelings of superiority and inferiority, how we compare with the others, and this also stimulate anxiety. But there is a lot of research that show how more unequal societies, have lower levels of health and life expectancy. They have lower educational scores. They have higher rates of violence and crime. They have lower social mobility. More unequal societies are less unite, are less cohesive, are less based on trust, and are less likely then to adopt more ambitious environmental policies as well. In more unequal societies, there is also a tendency to consume more status goods, like luxury sports cars and whatever, large houses. And this also, again, drives these societies that are shaped more around competition and less around cooperation. So we need both individual and system change, but I would like to stress that we need to be fair in recognizing the power imbalances that there are there when we talk about individual action and policy and big businesses. We need to recognize that there is a higher responsibility of policymakers and of big companies and corporations in start shaping sustainable lifestyles. Individuals can, of course, drive change, but only up to a certain point. They need really to be put in an environment and in a context where sustainable choices are actually feasible choices. And of course, actions that do not address overconsumption by the richest will lose legitimacy. So we need bravery and leadership from policymakers to rise up really the ambition level of policies that touch on lifestyles. What I'm proposing here is like a two-way approach then to sustainable lifestyles, which of course needs to address and enable nature-positive lifestyles and low-carbon lifestyles by regulating, for example, provisioning systems, but also touching on what are the drivers or the determinants of collective aspirations. And this also has to do with how a successful life is presented in advertising and the media and marketing as well, which is really still not largely regulated. So we can also explore what can be done there. And in parallel, reducing inequalities is really essential for increasing also equitable access to sustainable lifestyle options. But this is, although is often presented as a story of sacrifice, it's not a story of sacrifice. It will actually lead us to better lives for all. So there are many co-benefits of achieving a fair consumption space, which touch on the multiple levels of well-being: personal well-being, collective well-being, societal well-being, and all of that. So I think we also need, as a community on sustainability, start bringing more at the forefront these positive stories, these positive narratives. It's not about giving up. It's about gaining new aspects and increasing well-being for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Luca. So excellent. So now, thank you for clarifying this first space. Now we will come and start the first panel. That is, I have the honor really to introduce amazing people and activists that I respect and admire. So let me first invite Tarsila Riviera Sea. She is the Executive Director of Enlace Continental de Mujeres Indígenas. She is an indigenous leader, activist, and defender of the girls, women, and youth indigenous people rights. And she has over 40 years trajectory. Please take a welcome, Tarsila. So happy that you're here. And let me invite my friend, colleague, Annika Lindblom. She's the director for the international and the EU affairs in the Ministry of Environment of Finland. And she's also the co-chair of the TENWAFP board. Annika has been working in promoting sustainable development, sustainable consumption and production in the last 20 years, and has been since the very beginning when we started the negotiations to really develop and get endorsed the TENWAFP. So I'm so happy, Annika, that you are here with us. And let me also invite Suher Koshik. I always have difficulty, sorry, Suher, in pronouncing your last name. He is the global coordinator of Children and Youth Major Group, and Suher has been also as an activist and has been putting the young people voice in UNEA, in the international arena, and also promoting sustainable lifestyle. So thank you so much. We have this wonderful panel. Thanks. And now let's start with, I have 2 rounds of questions for each of you, but I will break it in between to also listen from the panelists. I think we have heard so much interesting information, insightful presentations. So let's start now. Tarsila, I will start with you. After these presentations that we have heard, but also given your role and your great work in advocating for the integration of indigenous knowledge, the empowerment of women, and preserving the cultural knowledge, how do you think indigenous people can take a leading role in promoting more sustainable lifestyles and reducing inequalities?
Thank you very much, and thank you to be here with us, because we are thinking that nobody will be with us, but it was very good auditorium. I think the most important thing now is to be listen each other about the proposals and solutions. In this case, from indigenous women and indigenous peoples, during, I think, the last 50 years, we try to share with global society about our style of life, about our cosmovision, why we began to talk in the 80s about the life of nature, of why the Pachamama or Mother Earth is with life. And we practice every day in the communities that the reciprocity. I don't know if you understand the reciprocity. We practice in the South. We receive something from the nature and we try to respect and make reciprocity. This practice conduct us to other practice. We use, with respect, the quality of the land, la tierra, no? Because we need from them healthy products for our life, the food and the medicine plants. And we use only what we need, not trying to use for the market. What is happening now, and that's why it's very important to have intergenerational communication about this issue. I think with so-called development are coming from outside the style, bad style of the consumption. What is happening when we said we need the road to the community? Come the road, and is arriving the merchandise, and they want our ecological potato for example, 5 bananas by kilo. And they sell outside 5 times more in the cost, in cost. And we want to try how is the smell, the smell of banana. We are not thinking about the money. We are thinking that we need that kind of fruit because we don't have in the community. But the other person are thinking, this kilo of potato is 5 times than here, and I can earn more money. That's the difference. And what is happening now is coming all new issues to the community. Candies, processed food, and the new generation are looking outside because the racism and discrimination about our proper style of life and about our proper style of food consume It's okay. Quinoa. Quinoa is our heritage from ancestors. Amaranto and others, very good food for us, but now it's not near to us. It's outside because the merchandise and the monetary economy is necessary to buy new things that the new generation needs too. How we can obtain the equilibrium in this relationship? Not only think on what are you looking in the internet, or how others are considered better because we are eating or practicing our traditional knowledge or consuming our traditional food. The other thing is now, I talk about the food because it's very important, no? Somebody talk about the glaciation. We have in Peru one white mountain. Now is the glaciation. Under this white mountain, we used to have one kind of algas. And now the international or national 5 stars gastronomy are using this alga. In the past, this alga was the food of the communities. And we try to use only the big, not the small. Now you can obtain only the small in the popular market because the other went to the very expensive gastronomy. And I said, what will happen with our new generation and nutrition? We come from, in all South America, from a civilization related with agrocentric practice. And we develop very good food and products, healthy. Now, what is happening in the name of economic development? The agribusiness. What is happening with agro or agribusiness? Only one kind of product, killing the life of quinoa. Because we used to produce the quinoa only with our proper knowledge in natural land. But now they need this, because the international market want more big, more white, or something like that. Or because the big market. That's why I think we need to think about the bad influence of outside and try to select how we can be this new generation with good conscience about our proper life, because from indigenous perspective, we are always thinking what will happen with new generation. That's why we take care of the nature, because we are thinking for tomorrow, because my son, my blah, 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 5 generation minimum. Now, in our territory, the presence of narcotraffic, killing the mother nature, the trafficant of wood, madera, and what happened with the life of the girls, young girls or boys. They are exploited and used in sexual traffic. We need to relate the persons, the life of people, and what are we discussing about the styles of life. What we can share with global society from our knowledge. Yeah, we are talking about biodiversity, blah, blah, blah. But what is happening in grassroots or in communities, and what is happening with in the life of these people. We need to put in equal, and I will finish this part talking about one all smart person gave us when we talk about equality, inequality, or gender equality. And he said, everything is valued, it's okay, when everything is in equilibrium. And we need to look for equilibrium, not only in gender relationship. We need to have and practice equilibrium with all what we, because we are part of all. And all of us are part of this only one planet. If we killed the life of the differences, resources, or others, we are killing to us. And Finland, thank you very much, because you gave me the proper name to potatoes, peruna. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tarsila, and you say so many things. I want to keep that reciprocity that you say is giving back to land, and to Mother Nature, and to use what we need. And also, thanks for highlighting what many countries in our continent are facing with the crime, narco-traffic, that is, again, putting at more risk indigenous communities or communities in vulnerable situations. And the issue of market is not a fair trade market, right? So the profit doesn't stay in communities, and often change the way, or the products that you were valuing become a commodity for the market, and therefore a profit thing that doesn't stay in communities. So let's turn now to Finland. Annika, in the recent scientific insights of the connection between sustainable lifestyles and inequalities, and you have heard from Merlin, from Luca, and many different reports, how can Finland's policies advance a fair consumption space that addresses these disparities, the inequalities?
Thank you, Adriana, and thank you for inviting me to this panel. And I must say that perfect pronunciation of Finnish language, so congratulations. But in this panel, I must say that I'm very humble. I belong to this 80% of rich population whose lifestyle is unsustainable, and I use 3 times more materials than some of the other colleagues. So it's important that I'm here, and it's important that we recognize in the rich world that we have responsibility in reducing our consumption patterns and revising our lifestyle patterns. But I must say that it's not easy, coming from the civil servant or ministry. So civil servant point of view, it's so much easier to regulate production than lifestyles or consumption even. And that's one of the challenges, that we, for instance, get quite a lot of environmental legislation from the European Union, but it would be very interesting to see a legislative proposal related to changing lifestyles and setting really like qualitative targets or quantitative targets to those. So I think we are not there yet, but we have to find ways in which we can deal with these issues. Coming from Finland, of course, what works for our benefit, even though our global footprint is huge, I think it's amongst the 10 biggest in the world, is that our society is quite equal, as we saw from was it Lucas' slides. So we don't have the inequality is not that much of a problem internally. Of course, we have rural areas towards the eastern border are maybe a bit poorer than the big cities and so forth. But we have this Nordic welfare society that is still functioning quite well. The problem is the overconsumption of natural resources, and this is what we need to tackle internally as well. And we have actually some studies that define the material footprint of a sustainable lifestyle is 8,000 kilograms per year for one person. We have a nice online tool in Finland established and developed by our innovation fund Sitra, where each and every individual can calculate his or her own footprint on the basis of the lifestyles, and then the system gives you some, options how to reduce your footprint on the basis of your, way of life, and that's pretty revealing, I must say. I did it also twice because I didn't believe the first one. But these kinds of, very simple tools are also available. Of course, they don't make the change, but they make you maybe understand and be aware of your lifestyle. Another thing I would like to say is that when we look at the 1.5 target, for instance, we many times talk about the technological solutions and efficiency and these kinds of things, whereas the studies show that significant reductions in greenhouse gas emissions are done particularly through low carbon lifestyles. So this is also, as we have heard today, that it is not an opinion, it's really a fact from science. But the crucial question, the key areas for reduction are food, housing and mobility, as we have heard. And this is also the case in Finland. And now the crucial question is where the responsibility lies. Is it within, the individual people or politics policies? Of course, we need both. But at least in Finland, it's very important for people to know that the government is doing its best to try to provide the circumstances, the opportunities for sustainable choices. And just to conclude, I would like to make 4 points that I found very interesting. I will go this through very quickly, and then I'll come back to one issue that still came into my mind. What we need. So. And this is on the basis of the study of one think tank in Finland. I think this gives food for thought. So people need support in their life stage transitions. So transitions tend to lock the people's material consumption to a certain level. So when people get children, when their families grow and things like that. So the household is changing, the size of the household is changing, so the sustainable choices become maybe more difficult. So how to support people in these transitions? Second one, more solutions that diminish the need for space and travel. I think we heard many good examples already today. We talk about mobility rather than ride to cars or something like that. Food is more difficult, I would say, also in Finland. We need to understand the diversity of values. So if you're asking to consume more sustainably works with relatively small part of the European population. And I can tell that in Finland, the recent study shows that young boys become more conservative, less green and less towards green choices, and the girls become more liberal and more pro-green choices. And the division is huge. And this is, I think, really worrisome also. And values change very slowly. And the last point from the ministry point of view, maybe the most important, is that we need to create need for sustainable choices. And as I said yesterday in the opening session in Finland, we have set a cap to curb the overconsumption in our country. And now we're implementing it together with businesses and cities and research institutes, and really trying to have voluntary commitments from important high-impact actors in Finland to make the change. And this is very, I think, promising, like an additional element in our mix of instruments to reach sustainable consumption. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Annika, and thanks because you are highlighting the policies that you are doing to reduce overconsumption. So in a way, you are also reducing inequalities between countries. And I like that you are also highlighting the importance of government in creating these enabling conditions, enabling policies, and making the choices. And it will be interesting to see why girls are more wise moving to sustainability. I'm going to go to Zuhair, and later we will open the floor so you can prepare your questions. We want to hear also from you. So as I mentioned, Zuhair is a youth activist. And Zuhair, after all these conversations, the presentations, so how do you see the role of youth in promoting sustainable consumption and in particular in enhancing this first space?
Okay, yeah, thank you for the question. But this question comes to me when Adriana just said that girls are wiser, and and we have seen that boys are less, conscious about the green choices and all. Okay, fine. So. Yes, so maybe I can give a justification why the lifestyle that the young people have today is not that green or that sustainable. There's a reason behind that. The lifestyle that we have chosen, I mean, we didn't actually choose. It was imposed on us by our immediate previous generation. What we have done in our childhood, what we have given to eat, what we have given to put on, or what we have given to use, we actually, build our choices on those. And also the corporates and the businesses that we have around the world in our countries give us always the fake solutions and sell those to us. We now see that, okay, the beverage companies and other companies are selling their products in plastic bottles saying, that, oh, this is recycled. What happens to the resources that we lose in this endless recycling? Right? They don't tell you about that. What happens to the toxicity that is increased through the recycling? All this unsound way of managing waste or recycling things. So that's the thing. Our lifestyle is not chosen by us. It's somehow decided by the corporates and the immediate generation. That's a challenge. So when we talk about that, now we can see that the businesses, and in many cases, the policymakers, we have seen them also getting involved and influenced by the businesses, promoting fake solutions or greenwashing solution as the best and most advanced available sciences. So when I was back in my university, I used to study in the University of Dhaka, which is one of the best universities in my country, which is often referred as the Oxford of the East. But when I started working with my colleague Cuban, who is actually a graduate of the Oxford University, I used to think like, oh my God, he's a real scientist. I'm not, and he's like from the global north. He is like from a university of a developed country. So we have this mindset that whatever comes from the global north is the best, and whatever we have is the worst. So that brings us to that situation that the science doesn't happen in the universities of the global north countries or the developed world. It doesn't happen in the highly equipped laboratories. It also happens in the indigenous community. It also happens in the local communities. I would say that the local knowledge and the indigenous knowledge are the best form of available science, and that we avoid. We bring in like the solutions which are greenwashing in nature, and our corporates and businesses sell that to us, saying that this is the best available science. And we see this influence is also happening in the interfaces, science policy interfaces, in scientific institutions, because our money comes from this private sector, who are like, it is evident. So we need to challenge all these solutions, which is promoted as the best solution or the best available science. That's the role of young people. But most often we think like, oh, this is coming from the scientist, so we should not challenge it. No, the scientific process gives you the right to challenge, right? Because we have seen that a lot of, medicines and a lot of doses were invented to protect us from COVID, right? Now we're seeing the side effects of those. So, but at that time it was told that it is the best available science, right? So currently, whatever science we have, the solutions, not science actually, the solutions, those are very reactive in nature. But the indigenous knowledge and the local knowledge and other knowledge systems, those are like very proactive. That prevent the problems from happening, and then, then you don't need to, grow a disease in your body and then eat the medicine, because you are already preventing the problem from happening. That's why we need to build on the indigenous knowledge. We need to guide it. Our lifestyle should be guided by the local knowledges and other knowledge systems. So young people has a very big role. I say that they need to challenge, and obviously the education plays a very important role. We need to educate our young people, the children. Education is not just for the young people; it's for the older generations, because the way they have dealt with the nature is not the proper way. So they should also be educated, and we should be educated that all this sustainable consumption production is not just something like a real liberal act. It's actually a common sense for everybody to do. Yeah, I'll just stop there. I think there's another question coming. Yeah.
Thank you so much, and thanks to her for highlighting and reminding us that lifestyles are shaped by different aspects: education, cultural beliefs, infrastructure, marketing, etc. So many different things are shaping our lifestyles. So I had prepared a second round of questions for the panelists, but I think we have talked too much. So we want now to hear from you. I think all of you will agree. So, so let's take 2-3 questions. And don't be shy, please. We would like to hear from you.
I want to add something. If, please. Please prepare the question. I want to comment what you said about knowledge, indigenous knowledge. We obtained in Paris the agreement in the context of COP, the platform of indigenous knowledge and academia or scientists, because we want to be legitimized in the Western laboratory that our knowledge is really scientific. For example, why now have a very expensive market of some indigenous products because is containing antioxidant. And we are suffering the trafficking, illegal trafficking of these seeds, because the market, the other form of style of life, need money and look only the market. And we are looking as a product for health. That's the difference. And I was very happy to listen to the panel about the scientific, the laboratory here, and I was thinking, oh, this product can go there, and now we can see and show why it's important. For example, over the world are talking about hunger, about malnutrition. Why our governments don't use our proper product to eradicate the malnutrition, for example? We need to give this kind of practices or examples to see, this quinoa is utile in Asia, in Africa, come from Andes, but is useful not only for the market because it's expensive outside, including in our place, because it's terrible. In Peru, we have many hundreds of these products. Everything is for outside, not for us, because the racism, my dear, the discrimination with our proper product and with our proper people. That's necessary to change over the world, I think.
Thank you, Tarsila. Very true, the discrimination of indigenous people, traditional knowledge. Thanks for that remark. Any question? I see 2, 3. Perfect. So let's take 3 questions and then we answer. And if you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Sanvi Bhutani. I'm from India. My question is actually for you, Anika ma'am. You mentioned that it's easier to regulate production, but not sustainable lifestyles. So could you just elaborate more on that? What are some challenges that you must have faced?
I didn't hear the first part of the question.
The question is that you said that it's easier to regulate production, but sustainable lifestyles, regulating that or incorporating sustainable lifestyles is harder. Can you just elaborate on that a bit?
I will take 3 questions. Yes. Okay, I will go for ladies first, and then I go to you.
But you have exceptional education. System of education is not the same in our...
Thank you very much. My name is Birgila Mizana from UNCCD, the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. I was listening very attentively and with very great interest the talk about how to change from intergeneration on our consumption and our production. I think that it's really a full cycle, not only what we eat, but also what we wear. Because more and more seeing, for example, in Africa, how the second-hand clothes is impacting the lands with just dumping it there and with all the consequences, disturbing the market, the health, the land, because with some landfills. So I think that, as you said from Finland, Inita, that it's difficult to change the lifestyle, but I think it's also easier if each of us take the responsibility to start by our own house and see how we can, following the young generation, start educating maybe our kids on what they eat, what they waste, and what they wear, because I think everything is linked. But it's a long battle which we need to start and doing every day. Thank you.
Hello, yes, my name is Henry Ngara from Zimbabwe. I'm the SCP SDGs youth representative. I just wanted to find out from you, Zoe, there's a question where you said that we have the modernization of science, and then we have the traditional approach to it. So, in other words, we are saying that if we are talking about the traditional science, we are talking about something that is passed on from generations to generations. Yet we are then talking to the modern science and we say, no, this is about materialistic ways of approaching things. It's about money mostly. It's about profit making. How then do we harmonize the two? Because we are saying that the societies will not want to give, because you see, for traditional methodology, it was not about money. It was about helping the community and growing the community and impacting knowledge to the future generations. But then modern science comes in and says, this is what we want. We want to be able to have finances and profit making for this, and also materialistic way of doing things. How then are we able to harness or to synchronize these to become into one, so that it then benefits the greater community instead of having these disparities that we have? Thank you.
Thanks so much. So Annika, do you want to start?
Oops, my papers. Yes, so I think that, you know, to regulate the lifestyles would be a very risky business for any politician, because it's also very much about your identity in a way, the way of life. I mean, the politicians don't want to sort of provide restrictions to their voters in issues that are maybe difficult to materialize in a way, so that they cannot really follow up that it's working. I think this is it's more and how to ensure that legislation, for instance, is the best means to achieve the targets that we are aiming at. So I also personally believe that other instruments, like economic instruments, that we ensure that you know, choosing sustainably is cheaper and healthier than you know, choosing something that is not produced in a sustainable manner, or education. My colleague just beside me whispered that for instance in Finland we have an excellent education system. So these kinds of measures are maybe more effective also when it comes to you know, pursuing more sustainable lifestyles. But I think the main reason for legislation being such a difficult issue here is that it is difficult for the politicians to sort of justify it for their voters.
And if I may add here, I fully agree that it's difficult to tell to consumer, don't do this, you cannot, you are not allowed to, so we have the consumer protection. But it's about choice editing. So in UNEP we are working on the choice editing, and what does it mean? In many cafeterias, for example, they put you first the chocolate or the meat or things. So choice editing, now you reverse. You put first the healthy food, the salad, and maybe on the back the animal protein, right? Or as they did in many cafeterias in removing the sodas that were high in sugar. So you can edit the choices and make the sustainable one like the more visible. And I think in Finland, just taking the example of mobility that Merlin was referring, you are providing the enabling conditions for people to have the mobility, public transport, bicycle, etc. So that infrastructure is there. So another way of also shaping lifestyles is the enabling infrastructure and the market signals, etc. So just wanted to add there.
Okay, so one interesting question I will address first is that the part of question, like, and your remark, educating children, like the kids. I believe that it's very much, it's needed. It's a must thing we need to do. We need to educate them about the ethical aspects of sustainable consumption and production and the sustainable lifestyle. At the same time, we need to also educate parents, because you know the kids don't buy things from the market. It is done by their parents. So if they don't buy the best products, the sustainable ones, then obviously the kids won't be able to have a sustainable lifestyle. This is the thing. So when we choose education to be imposed on anyone, we always choose that to be only on young people and the children, because we think that, okay, you educate, you study more, talk less. We'll talk more, we'll study less. That's the that's the kind of that our older generations want to push for young people. We need to educate everybody. That's the thing, because as young people and also the children, we don't have enough resources to make decisions. We don't have even enough decision-making power. So sometimes, as I said, we cannot even decide on our lifestyle. We need to educate everybody. Secondly, coming to your question, my friend from Zimbabwe, there is no trade-off between indigenous knowledge and the modern science. I don't believe that. Indigenous science, knowledge is science. We should not discriminate or categorize different knowledge systems at different science or like, oh, this is indigenous knowledge, this is modern science. It's not like that. Everything is science. And we all are citizen scientists. So indigenous knowledge is actually the local knowledge. Those are like available science, and we need to build on that because we have some of our solutions rooted in the indigenous practices, and we cannot avoid that. So I know that the problems that we are facing today, obviously we didn't face before. These are completely different in nature, the frequency and severity are very different from the previous, from the previous ones that we faced. So that, but our solution can be, solutions can be, inspired. We can seek the inspiration from the indigenous practices. Let's blend the modern available technologies and the indigenous knowledge and make the best available, best possible science so that we can, meet up all the challenges we are facing.
Thank you. We are running out of time. I'm sure, Tarsila, you want to add
Yes,
something, please? Yeah,
yeah, thank you for your comments and questions. Yeah, we need to take care about the intergenerational transmission of our indigenous knowledge. Now, with other actors and elements, we are broken the intergenerational transmission of knowledge. That's our challenge. How, maybe you are an exception. You are in the university and you sit with your abuela, grandmother. What is this? What is this? How is this? But it's not usual. That's one challenge for new generation and for us. But when we went to WIPO to discuss about the recognition of the indigenous knowledge and intellectual property of indigenous knowledge, during more than 20 years discussing about the indigenous knowledge is in public arena. How you have to demonstrate that or show that your knowledge is indigenous. Oh, we lost 20 years and now we have something. It's a very strong challenge for us, my dear. We need you, my generation, and the other generation, because we want to project, how do you say, for the future. But now we are talking to, here in this country, I listen indigenous people from urban area, because they went out of the community, and the reality is that they are maybe in the streets selling something. What happened with the indigenous knowledge from the community to new generation? It's a challenge too. That's why we think, okay, we are part of this system because we are in the states with constitution, in which constitution recognize our rights. We are struggling too in the countries, trying to be recognized. Principally in countries colonized and where we are part of cultural diversity, ethnic diversity, and all kind of diversity. And we are trying to learn from each other. But the challenge is very big. We always are dreaming that some of you will be in the place of political decision. When you are in the place for decisions as a country, and if you maintain your cultural identity, your language, and put on value your knowledge of ancestors, ancestors, how do you exercise that power? That's the challenge for new generation. That's why my generation think we are playing in this arena, is not our arena, and how we can obtain something to survive as peoples and as cultures and as language. We obtain very much in the system of United Nations because one of us went 100 years ago, and we have many mechanisms, but in the Permanent Forum of Indigenous Peoples, we have more than 1,600 recommendations for states. Education, health, knowledge, climate change, natural resources, everything. What is the challenge? To struggle inside our countries, to struggle with our authorities, that we have solution for some problems. We don't want to continue looking as a problem. We are not the problem. The problem is disinformation and discrimination. Excuse me.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much. And as you can see, this is a very intense and interesting topic, and that is, I really like this. Actually, very like to see Suher and you talking together, because it's intergenerational responsibility that we have, and to ensure that the traditional knowledge is going to pass and is bringing solution to the sustainability that we want to build, and also in reducing inequality. So with this, I will close this panel. Join me to give a big applause to our panelists. They are still around. You can catch them and ask more questions, and we will continue that conversation also over the lunch. I know we are running late. Apologies for this. I will give now the floor to Luca. Sí, we will do a, por favor. Luca, let me just make a photo. Arno, ¿me ayudas con la foto? Anika, can you make a photo?
Can I maybe use this one? Yes? Okay. Maybe while they take the picture, I can just mention. Can I talk? Okay, I would invite then, so we are quite running out of time. There is also another session at 2, so we may have to also do one round of questions instead of 2, maybe for the panelists is okay, but feel free to maybe expand a little bit. And so I'm inviting the next panelist, Ms. Rita Khanna. She's advisor to the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change from India. She has many years of experience on environmental education and conservation of biodiversity. It's my pleasure also to invite Mr. Hamza Yahia. Hamza is data science and green business process management from Tunisia expert, and he serves as the training manager of Active Citizens for Development Association, where he works on capacity building. Then I would invite Arnau Izaguirre Villa, legal officer of United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, where he was responsible for the negotiation that led to the revision of the guidelines for consumer protection. Welcome, and thank you so much. I think it's a very interesting mix. So we have India, which has been championing sustainable lifestyle, and Rita will talk about that. We have the youth perspective, and we also have trade, which is an important stakeholder, of course, when it comes to enabling sustainable lifestyles. I have 2 rounds of questions. Let's see how we go with time. I know there is another session at 2. And you may want to have time for lunch in the middle as well. So my first question is to Rita. India has emerged as a global leader in promoting sustainable lifestyle, as I was saying, and in particular through Mission Life initiative. Could you please share some key initiatives on the Mission Life in India?
Thank you, Lucas. First of all, let me take this opportunity to thank One Planet Network and Government of Brazil for inviting us for this initiative. See, as you know, I've heard all these presentations which were very inspiring for me, because we thought India has taken the leadership for Mission Life. So it's not us, it's basically a global mass movement, which is, we call Mission Life Lifestyle for Environment, which was launched globally by Honorable Prime Minister in October 2022 with the presence of UN Secretary General. At the core, when I was hearing from other key speakers, they said it is usage of resources. So we use a very interesting statement. At its core, Mission Life encourages a shift in our day-to-day behaviors to make environment-friendly choices and adopt sustainable lifestyles. The mission advocates for mindful and deliberate utilization of resources instead of mindless and destructive consumption. So we are advocating the mindful and deliberate utilization of resources. India has an economy and lifestyle that is very close tied to its natural resources. Simple living has been part of Indian ethos. Nature has long been revered and worshipped in various forms, such as rivers and sacred groves. Currently, India is the 5th largest economy. We are headed to become the 3rd largest by 2030. Despite housing about 17% of the global population, India is historical. Contribution to the accumulation of greenhouse gases is approximately 4% only. So India has successfully reduced the emission intensity vis-a-vis its GDP by 33% between 2005 and 2019, thus achieving the initial NDC target for 2030, 11 years ahead of schedule time. Additionally, India has set an example through its commitment to Mission Life by updating its NDCs with a focus on lifestyle for environment that further propagates a healthy and sustainable lifestyle. As Lucas has asked me, so this was the background about what Mission Life is. So I thought, let me flag this issue of mindful and deliberate utilization of resources. So now, what are the key initiatives which have been undertaken with Mission Life in India? As a significant stride, as Luca has mentioned, India has proudly sponsored a resolution at the 6th UNIA in Nairobi, Kenya, held from 26th February to 1st March, where we have intensive deliberations with ADRENA. I'm pleased to share that this resolution was adopted unanimously on 1st of March by all the member states. So this was our first commitment at global level. The UNIA resolution on promoting sustainable lifestyle adopted during this session focuses on promoting sustainable consumption as well as production patterns and encouraging the behavioral changes towards more environmental friendly lifestyles. Plant for Mother is another initiative which was launched by our Honorable Prime Minister. On 5th of June this year, more than 50 crores plants have been planted. Like as far as other initiatives are concerned, like we have launched 2 portals. One is called Mission Life Portal, which is a repository of all creators. It's more than 100 creators, videos on different themes of Mission Life. They're all, and you can download them. You don't need any permission from the ministry. As well as we have launched one more portal. It's called Mary Life Portal, which is basically to capture the activities done under Mission Life. So this is one major as far as the technological interventions are concerned. The other initiative which was taken during the last World Environment Day, like catalyze the pan-India advocacy and awareness about life, a month-long mass mobilization was undertaken from 5th of May to 5th of June 2023. So, this is what technology, this is what the background. Over and above, we always say Mission Life is not our, life. This is, we are mainstreaming Mission Life with the existing mandate and programs of the line departments in India. So far, we have mobilized, I think, more than 23 ministries. Also, to reduce the environmental impact and promoting more sustainable practices through the life cycle of products, the existing rules were amended and new rules were framed, incorporating the principle of EPR and circular economy, based on the concept of reuse, recycle, refurbish, and recovery for managing the waste arising out of plastic packaging, electronic waste, tire waste, used oil, and battery waste. At G20, Resource Efficiency and Circular Economy Industry Coalition was also launched by India. Already 45 companies from 9 countries are members of this coalition. So the objective is not only the international collaboration, it is basically sustainable production of goods and services. So these are the, like I can say, the key initiatives which are undertaken under Mission Life.
Thank you so much, Rita. And I forgot to say, very important, that India just became a member of the 10 YFP board. So congratulations very much for leading also. And I hope you and your country can keep on this momentum on leading on sustainable lifestyles. We need that. I'm going to Arnaud now. Yeah, the question here is how, maybe if you can tell us a bit more on how your organization is promoting sustainable lifestyle by shaping trade policies. And I would ask you maybe to talk about, maybe, try to make the link with reducing inequalities and also, how you are addressing different responsibilities across stakeholders in your in the guidelines, for example, or in your other work.
Thank you very much. My name is Arnaud Izaguirre, and I work at the UN Trade and Development in the Competition and Consumer Policies branch. So what we advocate is that markets work for people and the planet. Markets are really efficient in maximizing profit, and we have to acknowledge that that is a reality. And then Ms. Lindblom said it very well. What do we need? Individual responsibility or policies that do the framework? And you said it well, we need both. Because we cannot leave something as important as protecting the planet to the weakest part of the link, that means consumers. Because humans are bad people, and we usually make the bad choice when consuming. But at the same time, if we don't have more awareness of consumers, of what they want, politicians will not have the courage to put in place the policies that are needed for that sustainable consumption to happen. In a way, probably politicians know what to do. What they don't know is how to get re-elected after they do it. So that needs that space for citizens to understand that any limitation to their free will in markets needs to come because of responsibility, of this shared responsibility. What we do at UNCTAD, and we also do at the One Planet Network Consumer Information Program, is address market failures. That means if markets are left unattended, there will be abuses by those that are most powerful. Usually those are businesses in the business-to-consumer relationship. Market failures can be abuse of dominance, from big businesses to small businesses. They can also be unfair or misleading business practices. Consumers cannot make the right choice if they don't get the right information. Even when they get the right information, they probably won't make the right choice. And that we need two things. First, that they do get the appropriate information, that businesses do provide that information that is needed to take informed decisions, that they are not misleading, that there's not greenwashing. Actually, the greenwashing already reflects a transition from consumers that are more aware and more willing to put money where there is a sustainable choice. This is why businesses are trying to free ride on this will by providing misleading information. And the second is about making, once they have the good information, that they make the good choice. And this is about nudging. Nudging is a beautiful way of saying manipulating consumer behavior. We know how to do it. Businesses have done it all throughout history. Now it's time the policymakers also inform their policies to make consumers make the right decision. Again, consumers do have a role to play. They have the biggest role to play. Consumption is 60% of world GDP. But they don't have the responsibility to do it on their own. This is for government policies to be put in place. Education is a government policy. Awareness raising is a government policy. There is one instrument that the Consumer Information Program has brought to the world, and that is guidelines for providing sustainability product information to consumers. It was thought as a way to encourage business to better promote awareness from consumers. And it has a set of principles, very clear, concise. Once you read it, you say, of course. So information has to be clear, it has to be reliable, it has to be appropriate, etc. There's even some aspirational, which go into changing the lifestyles. The interesting thing is, we've been promoting businesses to promote, to produce, to transmit product information to consumers. Now it's the time that we have to enforce that information. And the guidelines are being used by consumer protection enforcement agencies to understand what is a misleading green claim, which is very complex because it is not the same for an Indian average consumer than for a Finnish average consumer. How are those understood by the consumer, and how to nudge them towards the right choice? That is the frontier that the Consumer Information Program is working through various working groups and a multi-stakeholder approach, really. So we've got biodiversity and consumption. We've got product lifetime expansion. Think about the planned obsolescence of products. We've got type 1 eco-labels and the Consumer Information Working Group. Through all of this, we're trying to change the way consumers play their role without putting the onus on the weakest link, which is themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Now, really, oops. Okay, it was not caipirinha, just water. That's not too bad. Not too bad. I don't see Adriana, but I'm pretty sure we are quite tight with the time. So I will maybe open the floor for 2-3 questions, if there are any. One there. Are there other questions? Okay, let's start with you, and then.
Thank you. I'm Subramaniam from India, Government of India. So just would like to connect some of the dots from the previous session. Ms. Anika said, and our colleague also mentioned, it is very difficult for policymakers or politicians to make policies to nudge behaviors or make a regulations on behavioral change. But as our Madam Rita said, the mission lifestyle for environment, it is a behavioral change that a mission has initiative launched by our Prime Minister to convert 1 billion pro-planet people. So that's what we are aiming for in 7 sectors on sustainable lifestyles. So that answers one of our colleagues' question, is it possible to, why is it so hard to make behavioral change? And second thing I would like to also mention here, India has piloted millets. The 2023 is one of the International Year of Millets, and it consumes less water, and it is grown widely in villages, and it is a sustainable crop. It consumes 1/4 of water than rice. So the propagation and the promotion of millets also is a sustainable lifestyle and contributes to sustainable consumption. Apart from that, we have also have certain regulations through policies. Government of India has, through circular economy principles and extended producer responsibility, the original equipment manufacturers and the producers have been mandated to collect, recycle, or refurbish the products that they introduce in the market at the end of their life. So it's a very tough choice for OEMs, because at the end the product lies with the consumer, and consumer never returns the product until unless they come up with a buyback scheme. So Government of India has already released extended producer responsibility for the e-waste, battery waste, used oil, tires, and plastic packaging material. So with this, not only these materials come back to recycling, they also enter into the new material for manufacturing new products. So we have less burden on the new resources. And also the last one is the major regulatory measure. I don't know, that the 12 plastic single-use items have been banned by Government of India. So it's a very difficult choice, like the paper plates, the cups, and the earbuds, and many other things. But it is a consumer choice. But with this, the indigenous people, areca nuts, and the many plant-based materials are used for making alternatives to single-use plastics. Thank you.
So just a thought. I do agree with Ms. Anika and a few of you that it's quite difficult for the government to make policies to nudge consumers' behavior or to change it. But I think this is true when we see policies as push factors. But have we ever thought, like, policies can be pull factors too, like making the eco-friendly alternatives, which is not perhaps that promoted, but available, maybe in smaller amounts in the market, you know, giving that incentives and making the tax-free, and also taxing the unsustainable ones can obviously maybe you know, work as a pull factor and maybe encourage consumers to buy the sustainable ones, because that's now cheaper when the unsustainable ones are taxed. So what's the take on that from the government perspective, and perhaps other speakers can also add, yeah. Policies as pull factors, not push factors.
I would supplement what Dr. Subramaniam has mentioned and what other participants have been raising their questions regarding policy intervention. When we say mission life, or for that matter, lifestyle for environment, sustainable consumption and production, this mic is working. So basically, we say there are 3 phases of mission life. So phase one is what my other key speaker has mentioned. It's nudging individuals. So when we say change in demand, this is called phase one. So nudging individuals across the world to practice simple yet effective environmental friendly actions in their daily life. So this becomes the phase one, which is at individual level. The second phase is change in demand, which is change in large scale individuals' demand are expected to gradually nudge individuals and markets, both. So this becomes the second phase. When we come to phase three, this is basically policy interventions. So phase three is change in policy. So by influencing the demand and supply dynamics of both, then the long-term vision of Mission Life is to trigger shifts in large-scale industries and government policies that can support both sustainable consumption and production. So I hope we were able to answer the question.
Yes, any taker, maybe also any other comments on the questions or comments? Yes or no?
Thank you, Luca. Indeed, the two policies that will influence more consumer behavior are not consumer protection policies. They are tax policies and regulation. And probably this is part 3 of Mission Live. It's taking place at the same time as part 1 and 2, right? Because we're exactly, everything happens at the same time. Think of the French tried to increase the tax on petrol to disincentivize consumption. And it led to riots. So the push and pull is not easy. And it's never easy. If it were easy, we wouldn't be here. It's about starting to do something that really can make the difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, I'm very happy how this developed. I think it's really showing what is the extent of the actors in play when we talk about lifestyles, when we talk about sustainable consumption and production. So I've heard a lot talking about consumer behavior, but we are really also here expanding to other areas and policy in particular, which also is of course a big factor of the equation. We should have now, soon after closing the panel, we should have the closing remarks by His Excellency Adrian Forde from Barbados. I'm not sure he's here. Sorry? He's on his way. Okay. Shall we wait? Yeah, sure. So let's continue the discussion and then we see when.
Yeah, I'll share one more initiative which has been taken by Ministry of Environment and Forest, India. It's called Ideas for Life, where we are inviting innovative ideas as well as technological solutions on a portal. The portal has been launched and, like all sections of societies are invited to submit their ideas. This is another way, like we thought enough of awareness has happened. So let's do something which, which is doable and you can see the impact. I always conclude with my all sessions, be the change you wish to see in the world. We should always start with us, small changes, then industry changes, and then policy interventions. If all these 3 things work together, I think definitely we can bring the change. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess then now I'm just aware of the fact that there is another session at 2. But I guess then we could go ahead with the second round of questions and close the panel later and go ahead. What do you think? That's good? Okay. Can anyone tell me what time is it, maybe? Sorry, 1:15?
1:15, yes.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, of course, if there are other questions, feel free now to use this time also for that. Otherwise, I have my questions here. Yeah, just afraid. Yeah, I think we just need to maybe wait a bit for. Yeah, let's go with the wrap-up. Yes, okay. I do have a wrap-up question. Yeah, so takeaway message from, I would say, the entire session. So the panel, but also the other panel and the presentations. So what are the key themes or focal areas the 10 YFP should carry on to advance the adoption of sustainable lifestyle, in your opinion? Maybe we could start from Hamza or from Arnaud.
Excuse-moi, je vais parler en français. D'accord. Selon tous les panels, selon tous les panels, on ne peut pas dénier qu'on doit travailler tous pour réaliser la durabilité ou bien la sustainabilité du tourisme ou de n'importe quel secteur dans notre société, we should, je pense qu'on doit être plus incrémental, n'est pas séquentiel dans nos activités.
Hamza, I need to translate now, otherwise I forget.
Okay.
Hamza is saying that throughout the process, in order to ensure sustainable change, we need to be more incremental and not sequential in our approach.
Thank you. It's like spiral model.
Like a spiral model.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You want to go out now?
Yes, actually, Hamza has said it all. I think the key here is the whole of government, whole of policy. And Mission Life has, well, whole of society. So it's really those different stages that have to play probably at the same time. And it's the courage of all of us to go for change. Thank you.
So my other speakers I've already mentioned. So what is the key message? It's whole of government and whole of society approach, which is going to help us. It's never one individual or many, it's all. Whole of society as well as whole of government approach. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I don't know if you can we maybe know when the minister can be here. Because there is another session at 2, I'm just conscious of that. And okay, so it's going to the other session. Okay, good, thank you. So I think we can close. Thank you so much. Please, a round of applause to our panelists. And thank you so much for taking some of your lunch time for being here.